Oh God, I don't know. Sometimes I research them. The Victorian character I have, obviously, she has to have a name that that would suit the period that she's in. So that's what I would do for her. But I just go through names and look up. Sometimes I go through books that I have myself, and I look up, names of different characters, and I just have to work on it till I find something that fits. Thomas Hardy, loved. I like I love the classics. I grew up on the classics, um, the Brontes, Jane Austen, um, but I also love. I'm a huge horror fan, so I grew up on H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe. Stephen King is just amazing. Like some of his later stuff that I wouldn't be so much into, but I just love his older horror stories. I mean, I just admire somebody who just writes every single day. And I also love the way that he just puts ordinary people in like really freaky situations and lets them get on with it. And that's what I like that. I think that's brilliant. I think you could write any story about anything, that way. Um, Suzanne Clarke, who wrote Mr. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, is just such an amazing book. And I've such a love of folklore and old fairy, kind of darker fairy stories. That book's just amazing, and it's a huge book, and it took her 10 years to write. I don't know, I suppose also Anne Rice, kind of for the horror. Loved her books growing up. And I would also like a lot of poets as well that would heavily influence me in my writing. Well, like with short stories, I just write short stories constantly. So I would just gather up, my favorites and put them together for a collection. My romantic literary fiction, which is kind of a bit of a comedy, which is coming out as well, that just, I think the stories just come to me and that's it. And I kind of put them into different niches then, I don't start writing one thing and then it would just become a horror. I know from the start that it's going to be a horror. I know from the start it's going to be romantic fiction or flash fiction. It depends on the ideas that I get, really. No, no, not really. I don't. I don't really think that way, and I don't particularly like moralistic type stories myself anyway. Um, I, okay, fair enough. I do like killing off characters, So characters annoying me or a bit of a bastard, and they deserve it. Well, I'll take great joy in killing them off, and I've done that in quite a few horrors. Like I wrote a collection of horror at Halloween, and there was one about kind of a peeping Tom type character, and he came to a very nasty end. But then the people that that inflicted whatever happened to him, they weren't very nice either. So I don't know if there is a moral in there. It's just good fun. Well, I haven't done a series yet, so I probably will be doing that. Will be doing that. The story that's coming out in April, I had no intention of there being two parts to it, but then I got an idea one morning at about 5 o'clock and wrote out the whole storyline in about half an hour, fleshed it out, and it's actually going to be a second one, but there's no hint in the book as to that, there would be a second one, so that's more of a surprise. No, it's not something that I've done yet because, as I said, I haven't done a series. But I would imagine if I say I was to do, branch into young adult and do some kind of a series that way, I think you'd have to, you'd have to have some kind of a cliffhanger or something that people would say, oh, hang on a second, what's going to happen to him? Didn't he just do that? So I think, yeah, it's a good thing that you would have to use like a tool. Oh, this book here is full of, there's so much stuff in it that's about me. I mean, there's a story I lived in London for a while, so there's a story that's set when I lived in a squat and what happened. I mean, it's not autobiographical, but it does have, little bits. I do think you do tend to bring a lot of yourself into your stories, So there's maybe 2 or 3 stories in there that people that know me have read them and said, ah, I recognise that straight away, blah, blah, blah. But it wouldn't be particularly just about me. But you do use stuff. You definitely use stuff, especially if it's good stuff, I would say for a writer starting out, you just have to read. You have to read continuously. You have to be basically, you know, a bookaholic like me, somebody who just, I read continuously. I walked into a lamppost reading a book once. You know, I pushed a buggy down the road with a book on the back of it, of feeding a baby with a bottle in one hand and a book in the other. I think you have to have a huge love for writing in order to be able to create stories yourself. And then when you have an idea, no matter what it is, just write the bloody thing down. Don't worry about what people will think about it. Just do it. Just write it down and just keep writing all the time, because basically, you know, it's like a muscle. You have to use it. You have to write continuously. And then eventually, when you know, if you write every day, you'll have a story very quickly. You have a short story very quickly, but you'll also have a novel very quickly, and then you can go back. And if you don't like it, you can edit it, you can change it, you can use it again. But at least you're writing. You have to believe that you can do it. God, I haven't actually gone on any. There's loads that I want to go on. I want to go to Yorkshire. I want to go and see where the Brontes lived. I want to go to Scotland. My daughter did, to sit in the cafe where J.K. Rowling used to write her books. Well, I suppose I did go when I was in my teens. I did go to Baker Street to look for Sherlock Holmes' house, but which didn't exist, and I remember being really pissed off about it, thinking it wasn't even a plaque up. I mean, it was a fictional house, like, but you know, still they could put something up. Oh no, hang on. We went to Harry Potter. I went to Harry Potter, Leavensden Studios this year with the children, and I suppose you could call that, I don't know if you could call it a literary pilgrimage, but it was definitely a pilgrimage. Probably more so for me than the kids. It was amazing. It was just every single prop, every single thing that you saw in that film was there in front of you. It was just, there was people there so excited to be showing you like spell books and, you know, with actual spells in them. It was amazing. But as to, I don't think, no, I haven't really gone on a literary pilgrimage. I would love to. I won't rule it out. I mean, you know, go to Maine, call on Stephen King. You know, love to go and find out where John Connolly lives. I'm not sure if he lives in Maine or Dublin, but sit down and have a chat in a pub with him. That would be my pilgrimage. The Lord of the Rings. I should have mentioned that earlier. I'm hugely obsessed with The Lord of the Rings. I've got Tolkien's words tattooed on my arm in Elvish. Absolutely, the end of it, you know. I remember reading it, I was 11, and I actually wrote on the bottom of it, you know, when Frodo leaves, I wrote on the bottom, I am very sad at the leaving of Frodo. It was 11 years of age in pencil, you know, with tear stains on the book there. That's the first book that made me cry. Yeah, still does. Oh, I don't have a big ego at all. I wish I did. If I did, I wouldn't give a shit, like, you know. No, I'd say it really helps, because I'd say for those of us that just hide in rooms and write, our work would have been out a lot sooner. I mean, I could have, you know, I was writing short stories and poetry when I was 19 or 20 in London, scribbling them down, like angsty type stuff, and you know, and it's the lack of belief that stopped me putting my work out there. So I definitely don't have a big ego. Um, I suppose sometimes if I read a really good book by somebody who's just amazing, like Paul Auster or someone like that, and I just go, God, why am I even bothering? You know, just other really brilliant authors. Also, bloody social media and seeing other writers doing so well and getting on so well and just feeling like, Jesus, you know, it kind of makes you dispirited. Not so much negative comments, because I've been really lucky. I haven't got any bad reviews, touch wood. I think myself, I think I can be really bad. I can really, really be negative about my own work and just make me just throw it away and just totally stop doing it sometimes, and I have done. So I am my own kryptonite. I don't think it's a myth. I think it's not such as, I don't think there is like a writer's block that would stop you writing for years and years and years. I don't know. I think maybe that's more of a mental block. You know, if something happens to somebody, you know, and then they just can't function. But Like, I think it's mostly procrastination. I mean, if you just don't do it, then it gets worse and worse as it goes along, you know? Days, weeks without writing is torment. The only way to get over it is to just force yourself to do it. And the best way to do that is to make like a deadline for yourself or have a project that you have to do. And then it's amazing the stuff that comes out under pressure, especially for me. The best stuff comes out under pressure, I find. But I don't really agree with writer's block, no. The best money, my laptop, I suppose. Yeah, my laptop and just all my stationery. I spend a fortune on stationery. I'd say that's it, really. I don't need much to write. Just need, I just need a computer. Oh, obviously editing, sorry. Editing is very expensive. I'm thinking that's more like the finished product. The actual writing, I don't need much. Free interviews. The best way to market yourself, well, networking. Networking is amazing, especially, join Facebook groups, get to know lots of different authors, or even better, groups that have authors and readers. I do a lot of social media, so it is effective, but it's hard work. I don't know if, I'd say probably the best way to market myself would be, paying for advertising and promotion, which is highly effective, but it's just very costly. But I think that's probably the best way to do it. Oh, energized, totally. I make myself go to bed sometimes, you know? No, I love it. I always feel great after, especially after, I've finished a chapter, or I have a feeling when you actually have finished a book and know you've finished editing it. That's just the best feeling in the world, that you've created something like that, I mean, how many people get to do that? 3 do's. Okay. Write every day. Believe in yourself when you're writing. Don't doubt yourself. And leave it when you've finished a project. Leave it for a while before you go back to it. 3 don'ts. Oh, I think one of them I just gave you was a do, was a don't. 3 don'ts. Don't listen to the voice inside you that tells you that you're not good enough. Don't compare yourself to other writers, because that's just, there's no point. You're not going anywhere with that. And don't ever stop. Don't ever stop like writing, even if you're in the middle of doing one story. If you get a new idea, just write it down somewhere else and come back to it later. Don't have an idea and not write it down. There's so many things, great ideas I've had that I've said I'll write it down in the morning. I've always regretted it. I always think that's probably the really, that could have been that really good story that was waiting to be written and it's gone. So always write everything down. Don't ignore, little prompts in your head.